Radio Cambridgeshire.
Serious subject, though, because one of the difficulties caused by the pandemic and mandatory mask wearing has been for those who are hard of hearing. People with hearing loss have experienced an increase in, frustration. Those COVID restrictions remained in place. Face masks, of course, making it even harder to communicate. The 3rd of March, today, marks World Hearing Day, an international day of awareness for deafness, prevention measures and hearing care. Got a couple of guests for you. First of all, Dr. Dalia Simpida, who's a chartered psychologist with expertise in hearing loss. Hello, Dalia.
Hello, good afternoon to you and our listeners.
Oh, thank you. Very polite. Very kind of you. Just talk to us a little bit about the kind of concerns that people have had with hearing loss during the pandemic. How difficult has it been?
Yes, during the pandemic, many people realized that they had some difficulties to understand people are wearing masks, and they're having some trouble. And that links to the importance of hearing, because hearing is a really important part of our life, and it is important because it connects us. We humans are made for relationships, and hearing is central to the sharing of emotions and ideas and happenings.
Yeah, and people who were already isolated to a certain extent have felt very cut off. Dalia, we'll talk to you more in a moment or two, but let's bring in another guest, Steve Parish, former international motorcycle and truck racing champion, known to many as Stavros. Lives in Cambridgeshire, very involved these days in TV commentary, motorsport, television commentator. Steve, hello.
Good afternoon, Chris.
All those years of racing bikes and trucks and so on, and it really, and then commentating and following it and being at the Isle of Man TT for 100 years, it's all affected your hearing.
Yes, it did. And I must admit, I'll be quite honest, I didn't know it had for some time. And I think I spent a period of my life, probably as early as maybe 40, 45 years old, where I didn't realise my hearing had gone as much as it had, and I now understand through having hearing aids how much it had gone. And I don't think we were warned back in my days to wear ear defenders or defence. And particularly when I first started racing motorcycles, they were two-strokes that used to seize up a lot. And quite honestly, I daren't put hearing defenders in, because if I didn't hear it seize up, I would have probably thrown over the handlebars and would have died, and that would have been the end of it. So it's something that didn't happen back then, but fortunately now it does, and I'm one of the first to tell people to make sure you protect your ears, because it can be awkward.
Talk to us about your hearing loss. What's gone and what do you have left, Steve?
I can still get by without hearing assistance or aids, but my high pitch went, and that's so common with loud noises when you're younger. I've got a very good friend that used to drive tractors when he was 16, 17 years old, and his hearing has gone the same. And it's just high-pitched noise, too loud, and that's the first thing that goes, is the high-pitched sound. I still actually have, I can hear men, and particularly someone like you with a good, solid, down, low voice, better than I can women. I know that's sort of the old cliche. You can't hear your wife say empty the dishwasher, but so it's a fact. And so you can hear lower tones better than you can hear higher tones, in my case anyway.
I don't think the long-suffering Michelle will take that as an excuse, frankly. But you hear in the world of music, people like Pete Townsend, The Who, famous for having thousands of watts in their speakers when they played at the Albert Hall, for instance, back in the late 60s and early 70s. And they paid the price. Pete Townsend as well. Deaf. Do you think if you'd behaved differently that you would be in a better state right now?
Oh, unquestionably. There's no doubt about it. I mean, as a 17, 18-year-old, I'd be in a little garage with my two-stroke motorcycle, revving it up and thinking how lovely it sounded. And it was probably, 120, 130 decibels, something like that. Way, way too dangerous. And you just don't think about it when you're young, or you didn't back then. I think people warn you a lot more now. So there's no question about it. My hearing, and so many of my colleagues in my industry, in exactly the same position. And that was the way it was. We didn't even think about putting even a bit of toilet paper in your ear roll. You just got on your bike, put your crash helmet on and went off. And in fact, it's been proven that without even the noise of the engine, if you're on a motorcycle doing more than 70 miles an hour, let's keep to the speed limit, the wind noise is damaging as well.
Yeah. And I've been at events with you, and you're always shouting, and now I know why, Steve. It's because you don't realise you are.
That's quite possible. That is quite possible. Yeah, I am.
Or maybe it's just you're a bit excitable. So talked about the mask thing and going out during lockdown made things even more difficult.
Yeah, I think it does. And when you start to lose your hearing, you do look at people's facial expressions a great deal more, not just it would mask the sound of their voice, but also their expressions. And I was very, very guilty before I got assistance by thinking I knew what people had said, and they'd said something completely different. And that's worse than not hearing it, and worse than not saying, excuse me, could you say it again? They'd perhaps say their dog had died, and I'd be going, oh, that's great, and just quite honestly get things completely back to front. And that's also extremely embarrassing. And people would stop me, or maybe walk with me at a race paddock and ask my autograph, and I wouldn't hear them ask and ignore them, and then you're treated as being kind of rude, and it is rude not
aloof.
To answer something.
Aloof.
Yeah, aloof, and thinking you're better than the poor person that's just after an autograph or something like that. So it can be hugely embarrassing.
Dahlia, talk to us about how that's made people feel, and also what can be done about it, because you're a research scientist into hearing. What can be done to change things?
Yes, indeed. I have a PhD in audiology, and I've been doing hearing research for nearly 10 years, mainly focusing on social and psychological consequences of hearing loss. So I can tell that hearing deterioration is a lifelong process, and it is not an inevitable part of aging. This is important to understand, and we all can enjoy the magic of hearing and what it has to offer in shaping our lives. And as some guidance to enjoy this gift, I think it's important to highlight that is really crucial to love our ears. And saying love your ears, this is the name of a UK-wide campaign launched by Hidden Hearing, encouraging people to test their ears and act on hearing loss for their health and happiness. And this is an acronym as well, EARS, which stands for Early, Action, Risks, and Safety. So as a guidance, I think it's important to remember that it's really important to act early, take action, know your risks, and follow volume safety advice. Hearing loss can make life more difficult, but recognizing the signs early will allow you to take action to improve your communication options and minimize associated health issues.
Okay, thank you, Dahlia. Dahlia Sim-Peter there, our chartered psychologist. Handy that we had her there, Steve, to explain the acronym of EARS. I can think of a few to do with you. Anyway, so the hearing you're still okay with, but occasionally you have to wear a hearing aid. Does that bother you, having to do that? Does it embarrass you?
I think there is a stigma attached to it, but quite honestly, I have a system from Hidden Hearing called Oticon, and you can't really see them. Fortunately, I've still got some hair that covers them up, but I'm not really that bothered because it works in some ways. It's beneficial. I get my phone going direct into my ears, so I can listen to podcasts or phone calls. I can have my TV going directly into my ears. So there's occasions when people can't understand what I'm talking and not hearing anything, but it's coming directly into my ears. So there's so many fantastic facilities now that are actually beneficial, and I wear mine the whole time now because it just doesn't feel uncomfortable at all. I wouldn't know. And the good news is, if I'm staying in a hotel in a noisy environment somewhere near a racetrack and everyone's screaming and shouting all night long, I sleep like a baby because I take my hearing aids out, and everyone else gets up in the morning moaning about the noise. So in some ways it's beneficial.
One last question. Forgive me if I go to this political issue, Steve, but we're hearing in the last little while that the contract with Formula One and the Russian Grand Prix has been cancelled. No more of those. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I heard that a little earlier, and I think it's absolutely right. I mean, it's a dreadful situation that's going on. Nobody can win from this, and we have to put in as many sanctions as we possibly can. And I'm right behind everyone that does. I think Mr. Putin needs to realise what's going on. We are one big world together, and we should live together.
Yeah, I know you've raced all around the world in the East as well, and you must have many friends there. This has shaken everybody, hasn't it?
It really has. We do seem in this world at the moment going from one catastrophe to another, don't we? Well, the first thing is Brexit, then it's COVID. Now this is much worse. Let's get this, our priorities here. And I haven't actually raced in Russia, but I've been to Ukraine. I've done Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, all those areas, and they're lovely, lovely people. And it's such a tragedy, and I feel so sorry for them. And we should all do whatever we can. But first thing, let's hope we can negotiate out of this, because it's not going to be any fun for anybody in the world.
Steve, I know you're on tour soon. If people want to check out more, what's the website?
SteveParishracing.com, Parish with double R, it's all on there. And we're coming quite close to you. We're going to be in St Ives in Cambridgeshire next month, so looking forward to that. So, yeah.
We'll try and talk.
You'll have to come along, Chris. I'll get you a free ticket.
We'll try and talk before then. Stavros there, Steve Parish, Cambridgeshire man, talking about